Greetings, brothers and sisters. This is another Hollywood celebrities dropping like flies.
They're dropping like flies.
Listen, people are dropping like flies out there.
I am
Boop.
pissed off.
We're dropping like flies around here.
We're dropping like flies here. Jeez. Sir, 2 more just went down. Dropping like flies.
Too many people around here been dropping like flies already, and where's that getting us, huh? Nowhere. Fast.
Biden's being Biden's being extremist.
Crush that fly.
And this is going to be a shorter video maybe. I want to get to the smoke thing. That's the main thing I'm going to cover at the end of the video. So I'm going, starting on a different browser this time. Because I got my smoke thing up on my regular. Anyways. Madonna's longtime pal Debbie Mazar gives health data on strongest gal I know. Get well, sis. Restore, reboot, strongest gal I know. She's not, well, whatever. And she's on the mend, home resting, warrior lioness. That's what Debbie Mazar had to say. Amanda Siegfried has wool vagina hanging from her upstate New York home.
I actually, in my house upstate, I have like a wool vagina hanging, custom vagina. Not kidding.
Yeah, well, we didn't think you were. You're weird. Kevin Costner claims a strange wife wants $248,000 monthly in child support to fund her plastic surgery. They had a prenup. Christy Brinkley, 69, calls out wrinkly brigade after trolls attack her appearance. Now, I don't care about wrinkles, right? We all get them. It's natural. You get old, that's natural. But, oh, damn. Like she's just gone full alien, they live ghoul here. Like, what's happened to Christy Brinkley's face? That's some plastic surgery and bad living right there. Country music star Kelsey Ballerini hit in the face during a concert. Here's the moment here. So that's a new thing. They're just chucking stuff at performers now. 8-year-old child in martial arts class beaten to death by instructor. Multiple employees of the club have been arrested after the death. An 8-year-old Chinese boy was beaten to death by a martial arts instructor a day after enrolling in the class. Like, how does that happen? When he talks back to you? So it says here, videos of the incident were circulated on social media, reportedly showing the boy collapsed on the floor wearing a T-shirt that displayed the club's name on the back. In the background of the video, a woman could be heard shouting that if the boy kept collapsing, his mom has told me she will not pick you up for 1 year. So that was, I guess they take it pretty seriously here. Noah Cyrus says internet trolls made her suicidal at 11. They didn't make you suicidal. You were suicidal, and they brought it out of you. Won't let them ruin her engagement. So she says, Noah Cyrus is done. The singer took to social media to slam the internet trolls who tried to tear her down after becoming a fiancé. Since I've announced something so pure and happy for me in my life, the internet and commenters have been working so hard to take the joy and love and happiness from me. Or you could just not read what they have to say, right? If it's making you suicidal. So yeah, you know. Those Cyruses. Sarah Jessica Parker, 58, she says she missed out on a good old-fashioned facelift. Sarah Jessica Parker has some regrets about not getting cosmetic surgery when she was younger. I honestly think I missed out on the facelift, the old-fashioned good one, that you have when you're 44. Even though, just like that, Star 58 has never had any work done, she admits that she thinks about it all the time. I ask people all the time, is it too late? You know, you didn't miss out on anything. U.S. purchased $290 million of drug for use in radiological and nuclear emergencies. Well, that might be something they normally do, or it might be something that they're preparing for. But either way, it's not good. Netherlands doctors are euthanizing people with autism, intellectual disabilities, study says. Several Dutch citizens who have autism or other intellectual disabilities have died by physician-assisted suicide in recent years after doctors determined their afflictions were untreatable obstacles to normal life, researchers found. So, you know. I mean, it's about time, right? What's happening there? New report finds U.S. kale samples contain disturbing levels of forever chemicals. 7 out of 8 U.S. kale samples recently tested for toxic PFASs, forever chemicals, contain high levels of the compound. The testing looked at conventional and organic kale brought into grocery stores across the country and comes from the Food and Drug Administration analysis conducted between 2019 and 2021, found no PFAS contamination. So this is, I want to, marry this into when I talk about the stuff to do with, all the chemicals in the fire. Today we don't have any motivational quotes. If you want to give up, give up. Right? That's a good one. Highly radioactive spill near Columbia River in East Washington, worse than expected. Aspartame sweetener used in Diet Coke, some chewing gum, may be deemed possibly carcinogenic. Well, they knew this before. I knew this years ago. They were talking about this. Like, it's always been known.
You give millions of borrowers false hope. You've doubted your own authority here in the past.
I didn't give any false hope.
Yeah, take that, you boop. Right?
The question was whether or not I would do even more than was requested. What I did, I thought was appropriate and was able to be done and would get done. I didn't give borrowers false hope, but the Republicans snatched away the hope that they were given, and it's real hope.
The Republicans snatched away real hope. That's great. There's real hope, but the Republicans snatched it away with their Supreme Court and their rulings. Okay, before we get to the smoke stuff, there was a couple comments I just remembered I wanted to address. And, I mentioned that I had a couple of Taylor Swift songs on my phone and some Selena Gomez. Like, those are the two, worst pop artists that I thought would, cause a reaction or whatever. Just because I was saying, if Madonna made good music, I would say it was good music, right? If I hear a good song that I like the song, I don't dislike it just because I dislike the person or what the person stands for. And, all the modern pop music, I mean, in the music industry is rife with, devil worshiping demonic stuff, right? And I got 2 comments and I, banned the people and I didn't think much of it. And I was like, I wish I saved those comments. And the first one, the person said, you have Taylor Swift and you listen to Taylor Swift and Selena Gomez? And then another person said, yay, you're a Swiftie and you like Selena Gomez. And so that's just how F the internet is, right? With that, I had another comment where somebody answered something, and I think I saved that comment. I'll cover that maybe on my other channel. But I was talking about how there was this ad I got on Facebook for polyurethane, and I didn't Google or say the word polyurethane, and I just thought it. And somehow the Facebook, whatever algorithms figured that out, and how weird that was. That's on my other video, on my other channel today, and I'll cover that comment later. But the person said something to the effect of, well, maybe your phone, even though it was turned off, maybe it was, they can still listen to you anyway. And I'm like, yeah, but that's not what I was saying, right? I wasn't talking about my phone being off or on or anything. I was talking about that I didn't even say anything out loud, right? And people just don't see you or understand what you're saying. The point of me saying that I had Taylor Swift song or Selena Gomez songs was because, there are people I've covered in the past and said not nice things about in terms of, whatever they've done, demonic stuff, whatever it is, right? That I don't have a high opinion of them. The song that Taylor Swift sings with Bon Iver called Exile is just, it's one of my favorite songs on that thing. I have this playlist that now my wife and I, my family and I used to listen to when we drive, long distances on vacation and things like that. And so I have a lot of different music, old music, modern music, things I listened to when I was a teenager, things like this. Songs my wife and I grew up with. And then there's modern songs, things my kids played. And if I like a song, I'm not going to not listen to it because of some, oh, wow, that's played by, some goofy little high school thing. But I'm certainly not a fan of these artists. I'm not going to their concerts. I'm not, reading about them. And, if they do stupid stuff, I'll mock them. If they engage with the beast, I cover this stuff here. And if they put out good music, I'll listen to it. If somebody serves good food, I'll go to their restaurant, right? If there's, and there's lots of reason to boycott people. I could find a reason to boycott everything, right? But it's at this point, it's irrelevant. But the point of what I'm saying here is people don't see you. I've put thousands of hours of content up, and still, regular viewers leave these goofy comments thinking things, trying to create a narrative that isn't there, right? What I said was, if somebody puts out good movie or good music, and even if if Alec Baldwin was in a great movie, I would say, hey, that was a great movie, and he did a good job in that movie. Regardless of how, I don't dislike these people. I don't care about them. They're not important to me. Stuff with Dodgy, the master of heartfulness system, he's corrupted something that means a lot to me. And, there's personal things, like this has personally affected me, and there's personal, like, bad blood and things. And I still talk about the good things he's done. My ex, who, is a horrible person for me in some ways, but great in other ways, helped me, go through, the divorce and the relationship helped me evolve spiritually. But she brought some good things into my life, certainly our children and other things. And, there are things that bad people do that are good, or there's things that influence us in ways. And, I'll say those things, I don't talk about them often, but I know that they're true. I know that there's good things my ex did. There's good things that Dodgy's done. And then all these other people, there's, people that may love them. There might be things that they've done in their lives, something quality they've put together. I don't know. I don't care, right? It's just that the world and the internet is consumed by hate. And you put one group in one category of good and one group in another category of evil, and then, people you don't care about. And, it's not like that, right? It's all a mess. Like we're a degraded species on a tanking system that's collapsing in the apocalypse, and it's not going well for any of us, and we all got a lot to answer for, right? And so, I just don't care about it. Like I don't hold personal hatred or grudges towards these people. I mean, they suck, which I point out, but that's between them and God. All right, let's get into the smoke stuff here. So I just want to add one thing to this. People don't know what they would do if they were in a position of power. Like people who are, sitting at home in some, whatever it is, like, trailer park or tenement house and, living in poverty and complaining about the so-called elites, right? But you can see it in people's lives, and you can see it the way people treat each other, and you can see it in the way that they have black and white thinking. Because immature souls that don't have much experience, that's how they roll. And where they're given power, when they're given, positions of power, either being rich people or political power or something like this, that's what they do. And most people in the truth community would do that. Or the other thing is, when people are put in positions to be successful, they also fold. Somebody like Fetterman, right? And so I mock people, and I'll, point it out. I'll point out people's failures or their mistakes that they've made. That's, part of what my job is here. Not that I'm compassionate to them, but I know that in a similar circumstance, I don't know how I would do, right? Or you would do. People who have this black and white thinking that there's evil people here and good people here, good people on one side and evil people on the other, they just don't have the capacity for abstract thought or understanding these things. And I saw this in treatment centers working with kids who were, sex offenders and just the dregs of society. Well, many of them coming from the dregs of society, horrible families, lifetime criminals in many cases, or they'll be institutionalized for their whole lives. And part of the goal was just to teach these kids a little bit of empathy and compassion and, whatever it might be. But sometimes they would do that on their own, some of them at least. And they'd have their good moments. Some of them were more likable than others, given their behaviors and things like this. They were better people, and some of them were horrible people. Some of them were, kids that just made mistakes, and they had some potential, right? Most of them were going to spend their life in institutions, though, and they were pretty much doomed from the time that they were born to a low level of existence, and there's lots of people like that. But people's families, people's upbringing, people's circumstances, whatever, some scars they come in with. I've talked about some scars quite a bit on my Journey series, the spiritual impressions that you have that bring you into this life. And then there are good souls that play evil, they play some sort of evil role. They're fulfilling a part in the divine drama based on their divine mandate. And so they have good souls, but they're playing a villain on planet Earth. So there's all these factors, right? And that's why I don't, get so upset about it and feel like, all these other people are so bad and I'm so good. That's, it's just you don't know what you would do. And I could say for most people in the truth community, I could tell right off the bat they wouldn't stand up to the corruption or the whatever it is. Like very few people would. And if they do, is that what they're supposed to do as a soul, right? Your soul has instructions, your soul has a plan, and do you stick with that plan? Very few people do that. Very few people find their soul's path and follow it. And so, and if you do that, you should just consider yourself lucky that things broke that way for you and you're in that situation where you're lucky enough to follow your soul's path and embrace it. That's why I always talk about being being grateful. You should come from a place of gratitude that you're not in those circumstances, and you don't have to be. I'm very happy that I'm not in politics or in Hollywood or these other places, seeing what I see on a daily basis. And so we all should be grateful for that, right? That we're not involved with, criminal behaviors and living in some, gangland or some war-torn country where people have to engage in horrible behaviors just to survive, in some of these other countries and things that people live in, and families like the royal family. That'd be a horrible place to be born into, something like that, right? And just all the evil that surrounds you from birth, and you're saturated in it, evil power and all these things. And so we should be grateful that we're not in those circumstances, and be, I want to say proud, but happy that we're able to keep ourselves out of those circumstances, that we're not looking to get into those groups, get into those clubs and things like that. And so, we're all in this together. It's a mess, and we're all contributing to it until it changes into something else. But anyways, let's get into the other thing here. So ESPN, just before we get to the smoke stuff, ESPN lists of names affected, including Todd McShay and Steve Young. So ESPN laid off a number of people who, if you watch the network there, Fairly Famous, Max Kellerman, Keyshawn Johnson, Jeff Van Gundy, Jalen Rose, LaFonso Ellis, and Susie Colbert. Jeff Van Gundy is probably the only one that I would think would be an issue. He does a good job with the announcing. They have a trio of people. But ESPN is Disney. The cuts to Disney's global workforce are part of a multi-billion-dollar cost-cutting initiative aimed at streamlining the company's operation. So Disney is hurting. ABC, Disney, ESPN, and they owned a lot of other, Marvel and all these other things. The company reported operating profit grew 56% to $12.1 billion in 2022. Yeah, then why are you laying everybody off, right? So this is just another business that seems to be, a megalotron type business that is, hurting. So this is a tweet my wife sent me yesterday. Sulfur dioxide and hydrogen sulfide, both very nasty and very deadly. I measured them in concentrations of up to ppm H2S and up to 3 ppm SO2. This should never happen. So I never found the source of this. There was a group that was, I don't know, maybe measures air quality, but I couldn't find the original tweet, and I couldn't find anything else that confirmed or said the same thing across the internet. What they are saying is, one of the things that when I was searching for that, why does a Canadian smoke smell like chemicals? Why does it smell like burnt plastic? And this came up organically. And the reason for it is they're saying it has benzene and formaldehyde in the smoke. And so people are smelling smoke like you usually don't smell with forest fires. And the forest fires, here's a map of the coverage. It's covering about half the United States. So the coastal areas are getting hit here. Chicago and Detroit had horrible, like the worst air conditioning in the world a couple of days ago. And so it's hit across this whole area here. And whatever's in this is going down into the soil. It's going to be in food. There's a lot of food grown across this region of the country. A lot of good farmland over here, in the middle, the Midwest here, and then all the various southern states that have long growing season. And, God knows what they're doing here, but I don't believe that this is organic, that these are organic fires. So going back to what I was saying in the previous episode here on this channel, and I gave this narrative that, I covered in my book, The Choice, and certainly wasn't, completely my original idea. This was, a number of different movies and theories and things that are out there, and I've, put these together into something that, to me, sounds fairly reasonable. And that is that, that the best way to invade a world would be to incarnate into the world. Let's say that your species, your planet that you were from had a different type of environment. Had an environment that was high in radiation, for example, or higher in CO2 or, whatever it might be. So you would incarnate there into like in this case, human form, where you would be, like a block of souls would all go to that world and incarnate in with some sort of nefarious plan, right? And they could change the atmosphere. And this has been done in various, this idea has been done in multiple stories and movies where the atmosphere is changed to accommodate, alien life or demonic life or whatever it is, right? I was talking about the Lord of the Rings and the orcs, and they turned Mordor into Mordor, which was a place that, evil beings would flourish in, and people of light and, good people, good beings would struggle. Regardless of the validity of that, we should all at least suspect and look at the people who control the system, that they're either doing this, but at least we know they're capable of this. They're capable of mass murder. And we know this because they've created weapons of mass destruction. Governments all around the world, corporations, our whole military industrial complex, and the chemical companies and the companies that put out toxins and poisons and have wrecked food, GMO foods, and Monsanto putting, pesticide into corn so that the corn grows with pesticide already in it, and you eat it and you suffer, these things, right? That all these companies and governments and people of power have contaminated this world, saturated it with Wi-Fi and all these things, the way the internet is affecting kids and people growing up with it, and all the things that they've done. That is leading to depopulation. Certainly they want to kill people. The pharmaceutical industry, the carcinogens and things that cause heart disease in your foods, obesity, all the things. If you look at all the stuff out there that proves they're trying to kill you or make you suffer at the very least, live lives that are, where you're physically hampered in such a way that you can't really get ahead in any other sphere of activity because you have chronic health. I saw this article about 3 years ago before COVID, and it said that young people, it was like a third of them suffered at least one chronic medical condition, and or half of them is like 25 to 40, and 1/3 of them suffered two. And so, I posted the article, and then I had all these young people saying, oh yeah, I have this. All these young people have weaknesses in their system, and they're just not as healthy, right? Each generation becomes weaker and gets more and more hit by the toxic world that we've created. And so when these forest fires were released, and we've never seen anything like this, right? Where, places in the East Coast and even all the way down to the South and in the Midwest and just all across the, half of the United States were covered in smoke, and the smoke smelled funny, and, people felt, bad being outside, and there's all these reports of these things, right? And, with Canadian fires, that we've never seen anything like this. Even in the West, where we have these wildfires in California and Utah and Arizona and these places, it's nothing like this, right? It's not, it's not comparable. And so we live in a world now where all of these things are happening. And it appears, we know that they've, stated this. The UN gave out awards called the Population Award. It wasn't the parents that had the most kids, right? It wasn't that family in Utah that had a show where they had 18 kids or whatever. It wasn't the mom who birthed, all these babies, or a doctor that delivered as many babies as possible. It was people like Bill Gates and other people who worked towards reducing the world's population. We saw the equation Bill Gates put up when he was talking about this, the population awards. He was talking about the CO2 emissions, all these things. And so the world is overpopulated with humans. I've discussed this before. People have have adopted this idea that everyone could fit in the state of Texas, but I've explained this over and over again. Overpopulation happens in cities, in small areas. Animals that are overpopulated are concentrated in small areas, small countries, small cities, and it's not global. But we do have global overpopulation with these cities that are, human beings aren't designed to live in cities the way that we live in them, right? And you see the mental illness and the breakdown of society. All this depravity comes from cities. It spills out, to the country, but those country people who, have some sort of depraved Hollywood morality internalized in their system end up going to cities anyway, right? Cities are the Mordor of, of this world, right? But in all that, we should just assume that they're, trying to kill us, right? And now this stuff with kale, like kale is something, my wife and I have had a number of volunteer kale plants this year that just started to grow around our pasture, around the fringe areas, and some of them along our driveway. The ones around our driveway had already seeded out before we got to them. But there was one plant that we for about a month, every day we were just eating multiple leaves. It's like the best kale I've ever had. And now we have another one growing on a path. I've made all these paths, walking paths that we walk around. And there's wildflowers and things. And this kale just magically appeared there. And we were talking about how much better it is than the stuff you get in the store and things. I don't really like kale, but I know it's good for you. If you're eating something like kale, it's supposed to be a superfood, and it's got forever chemicals that are going into your system. You're never going to get rid of them. Like, they're doing that on purpose, right? Even organic stuff and whatever. You can't trust your food. I've talked about having to read the ingredients all the time. It's exhausting to read the ingredients. And this stuff that's in the air, these particulates, and how long are they going to be left over, and are they going into the ground, and, what are they doing here, right? It's just whatever their plans are, it isn't for good things, right? It's war and depopulation and ruining this planet to such an extent that future generations, the life on planet Earth, won't resemble anything that we have now. Fresh air, clean water. I mean, even you think back to the Native Americans, that old commercial where that Italian guy dressed up like an Indian, right? And he was crying when people littered on the side of the road. The difference between this country before white people got here, the Native Americans, they were good stewards of the land, and, they're harmonious with nature. And places in Europe and all these other places that there was, before modern life, when there was tribes and there was village-based lifestyle, before cities grew up and, these religions and, these corporate governments took over and things, and these evil kings and robber barons. But we had a much cleaner planet. And as much as the planet is polluted now, and it isn't nearly as pristine as it used to be. That guy John Smith, who was one of the original pilgrims that came over, he was famous, historical figure. He was, coming from Europe, coming from England, and he was crossing a stream with his horse, and he was stepping on fish. Like the horses were killing trout. It was so abundant with fish that just by crossing a river, you'd kill fish, right? I had a friend in college who, his family owned, they were originally French-Canadian, and they owned land deep in the woods. And they had some cabins out there, and they would go on a family vacation every summer. And he said that they would pull in hundreds of fish, and they weren't even putting bait on the hooks, right? There was just so many fish teeming in these, lakes and ponds and stuff they had there. And so, there's a level of abundance that used to be here. The chestnut trees that were here before Dutch elm disease came over and killed all the giant chestnut trees here. Of course, the redwood trees and all these magnificent forests and, woods and spectacular aquatic areas and, Hawaii and Alaska, coastal areas and beautiful desert areas. I mean, just a wonderful country. If you've seen the natural beauty here, I've lived in a number of these states. And America's a beautiful place, and there's beautiful places all around the world. And it's not going to be like that. It's going to be much, much worse. And the people who are running the system are intentionally doing this, whether it's part of a bigger plan, a spiritual plan, things I talk about on my other channels, and I talk about in spiritual videos. Sure, there's a plan here, and there's reasons for these things happening, consequences for bad behavior, whatever it is, right? But it's happening. Like, that's what's happening right now. You can't trust the food. You can't trust the water. You can't trust the, government and the, people, corporations, and the air and the, every story that's out there. And you have to figure out, what's really going on. And then all this disinformation that follows in the truth community. And, it's just a mess. It's just, we're an embarrassment as a species right now. And, there's nothing more to say about it. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.